My family disowned me for marrying beneath my status. 10 years later, they showed up at my door desperate for money. When I told my family I was marrying Carlos, a landscaper I met while he was working on our estate gardens, my father's face turned a shade of purple I'd never seen before. You were throwing away generations of legacy for a gardener, he spat. My mother simply wept, as if I'd announced a terminal illness instead of an engagement. I was 24, had just finished my MBA and was expected to marry someone from our circle, preferably the son of one of my father's business associates. Instead, I fell in love with a man who worked with his hands, spoke with an accent, and came from a family where college was an option. The ultimatum came swiftly: break up with Carlos or be cut off completely. No trust fund, no connections, no place in the family business, no invitation to family events. My siblings watched silently as my parents delivered their verdict, not daring to defend me. I chose Carlos. We married in a small ceremony with only his family and a few of my college friends in attendance. I started from scratch using my education to help Carlos expand his one-man landscaping job into a legitimate business. We lived in a tiny apartment, budgeted carefully, and worked 7 days a week. The first 3 years were brutally hard. I applied for jobs only to discover my family had blacklisted me throughout their extensive network. Carlos faced discrimination when bidding on high-end projects. We struggled to make rent some months, but we had each other, and eventually we had our daughter Lucia. Slowly our business grew. Carlos' exceptional work began to speak for itself. I developed a niche marketing strategy targeting eco-conscious luxury properties. By year 5, we had 10 employees. By year 8, we had bought our modest but comfortable home and had contracts with some of the most prestigious properties in the region, ironically, including several owned by my parents' friends. I hadn't heard from my family in nearly a decade when the doorbell rang on a Sunday afternoon. I opened the door to find my father, mother, and older brother standing awkwardly on my porch. They looked older, of course, but something else was different. Their designer clothes seemed worn, their postures less confident. "Elena," my father said, using my full name instead of the nickname he'd called me since childhood. "May we come in?" Carlos appeared behind me protectively, placing his hand on my shoulder. Our daughter peeked from behind his legs. I invited them into our living room, where my mother's eyes darted around, perhaps noting our modest but comfortable furniture, family photos, and children's artwork on the walls. The story emerged haltingly. My father's company had collapsed after a series of poor investments and a fraud scandal involving his CFO. Their assets were frozen, multiple lawsuits were pending, and they'd been forced to sell their home. My brother's hedge fund had also tanked in the market crash. "We need help," my father finally said, his voice breaking, "just until we get back on our feet." The silence that followed felt eternal. I looked at Carlos, who gave me a subtle nod, leaving the decision entirely to me. "What exactly are you asking for?" I finally asked. "A loan," my brother interjected quickly. "Or perhaps a position in your company. I've heard it's doing quite well." I almost laughed. The irony was too perfect. The family that had disowned me for marrying a mere gardener now wanted financial help from the successful landscaping business we'd built. "Our company has a strict nepotism policy," I said calmly. "We don't hire family." My mother flinched at the word family. I continued. "As for a loan, we have a policy for those too. We need to see a business plan, financial statements, and collateral." "Collateral," my father repeated incredulously. "Elena, we're your parents." "We're my parents," I corrected gently. "You made a business decision 10 years ago when you decided my marriage was advantageous to the family. I am making a business decision now." They left shortly after, my mother in tears, my father rigid with what might have been shame or anger that night. As Carlos and I sat on our back porch watching Lucia play with our dog, he asked if I regretted my response. "No," I said honestly, "but I don't feel the satisfaction I thought I would. Just sadness for what could have been." The next day I called my youngest sister, the only one who had secretly sent a gift when Lucia was born. I invited her family to dinner, offering a chance to know her niece. She accepted immediately. 2 weeks later I sent my parents information about financial counseling services and a modest check, not enough to solve their problems, but enough to show I wasn't motivated by revenge. With it I sent a note. "This isn't a loan or an investment. It's a reminder that family shouldn't be conditional. Lucia would like to meet her grandparents someday if they're interested in knowing her for who she is, not for what she might offer them. Some bridges once burned leave permanent scars even if rebuilt. But I do know that the greatest wealth I've gained in the past decade isn't in our bank account. It's in learning that true worth isn't determined by status, but by how you treat people when nothing can be gained from them."